Welcome to the Community Pilot Podcast with me, Sergey Generalov. On the show, we invite community leaders to share their experience and reveal the insights of the community building through their inspiring stories. Today, Galina Fedorova is here to join me. Galina is a serial social entrepreneur and a co-founder at Goodlearn, a donation platform that connects local needs with local resources to maximize humanitarian action. She will share her experience and tell us why local communities need a systematic approach to solve their problems. We will talk about why our approach to teach young people needs to change and how Goodlearn Foundation is trying to teach younger generation of entrepreneurs and inspire them to become a part of a solution through Social Innovation Youth Incubator. Let's get started. Galina, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
And I want to get started today by asking how do you make your way into the inspiring world of social entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I didn't put myself into social entrepreneurship world intentionally, and that time when I started my journey on a working journey, let's say, in the labor market, and there was no such a thing as a
Uh-huh.
social entrepreneurship, and I was always interested in helping people and creating environment where people can thrive, whether it would be helping with just basically covering the basic needs of people or working with them on their leadership development or helping them to learn how to overcome challenges better. So it was never a desire to create, let's say, one solution, more like it was an idea to just always looking for ways how I can help people around me. And actually, when I graduated from college, it was not a desire to be part of the company that would actually do something like that. My journey was not to make money by helping people. It was the two totally separate things. I would work and make money, and then I would, on my spare time, do different projects.
So it started like a hobby for you, basically.
It's not a maybe not a hobby, but a way of life.
I
Like
see.
without that, it would not my life would not be fulfilled. So by helping other people, I was helping myself pretty much. Yeah, and then at a certain point, there were more and more ways how they were my day job was weaved into my work with people, and that's what led us to create Goodler.
So what was this moment for you when you like, okay, it's time for me to start my own company and it's going to be a company that is going to help people and you decided, okay, I'm calling myself a social entrepreneur.
I don't even think that I call myself social entrepreneur, and the desire to start the company came out of our desire to create a sustainable business that whose mission is to help people, and it would not have happened if it was not for my sister moving to the United States and us starting to verbalize our desires for life and our plans and for future and for ourselves and people around us. And she is a big visionary person, so her visions are larger than this planet. And being around her allowed me to start thinking bigger and get outside of my comfort zone and start pushing myself into areas that otherwise I wouldn't have thought of getting into. And it kind of coincided with the whole movement of social entrepreneurship. I still don't think that's the right definition of it, but I guess for the lack of any better word, that could be the definition that we can use.
Yeah, I used it only because I think it's either on your LinkedIn profile, or maybe it's on your sister's Tatiana's profile. Is says that social entrepreneur from 2012 or something like this.
Hmm.
Speaking about LinkedIn, I know that based on LinkedIn, you went to Stanford to do like a 1 year special program there on a social entrepreneurship as well. Was it before or after you decided to start a Goodlearn? And how did it like? Did it help you to understand this field better, or like would you do it again? Go to this special program.
I think the most important thing of that particular program or programs as such that are designed for professionals are the benefit of those programs is in being able to connect with people, like-minded people who
Hmm.
chose the program for themselves. And it's not really even talking to the faculty per se or the program in itself, but the ability to network with people around
Hmm.
the common around common educational program. So it was not the program itself, I think, that helped me, but the connections that were made, because you can find information and you can find those professors outside of the college, but it's the group of people that comes together, and the college provided the opportunity to actually for us to talk to each other.
I see. Okay, so basically they put you in the same room with like really smart people, and the real benefit is that they connect you with these people and they give you like a common topic to discuss, and this brings you to invent new ideas, solve the problems. That's the real benefit that you saw. But you would say that the same knowledge you're saying that the same knowledge you can get in the internet from the professors without going to these programs.
Yeah, that's a right statement. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's how you find. I think for people, especially those who are not in Silicon Valley and don't have the access to people who do the same things, people from smaller cities, areas where that are not saturated with entrepreneurs in general, this program could be a very, very beneficial because of that connections that they can create. Here in Silicon Valley, I think we're so spoiled because we have access to people, we have access to resources, we have access to professors. We're overwhelmed with the choices that we can make. So for I think for me, being here part of the entrepreneurial communities through my sister's work with Ambar Association, and also with the Silicon Valley Open Doors Conference. There are tons of other conferences. You can actually have, if you organize yourself in a certain way, you can get that knowledge. You don't really need to go to a specific program per se.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. But let's switch to like your company, Goodler. So, as you said, being in Silicon Valley, I mean, it's a center of entrepreneurial activity, and like you decided, being there, you decided to start Goodler,
Hmm.
and this is not a your regular startup because you don't pursue the profits. I mean, as I understand, it's a for-profit company, but it's not like you don't try to be the next Uber, right? Can you tell us more about the Goodler and like why? What are you actually doing? Like,
What is Goodler?
yeah.
When we started Goodler, the idea was to connect people with people who need help, like people in underserved communities and people who are in extreme poverty, with the resources to cover their basic needs. And that was a main premise. And we thought that bringing those people resources that are locally sourced would solve the problems in communities, because it will help the economies to grow. Let's say, in comparison to Tom's shoes, where shoes were brought from outside of the country and they killed shoe industry in many
Right.
places. That's just like one of the examples. But there are multiple examples like that where food aid comes during harvest time to the country and killing whole agriculture in that particular area, and many, many other examples. So our goal was to connect local needs with local resources. And we were successful after the 3 years ago, after the earthquake in Nepal, where we were able to connect donors in the United States and Europe with merchants in Nepal who, after the earthquake, purchased all the rice from those merchants, and the merchants delivered the rice to the area of the disaster. And after that, we got accolades from international community. We were invited to be part of the humanitarian World Humanitarian Summit in Turkey. It's by invitation only event, and we're invited to the United Nations. And everything was great until we realized that in many places where we wanted to be and help, the local resources were not readily available, and they were not available in quantities that were required to cover the needs of these communities. And we had to take a step back and revisit our idea and
Hmm.
think again on how we can make it happen. And that's why we started Goodlearn Foundation, because we also saw that entrepreneurial movement in the area, in those areas where communities wanted to create their own resources, the entrepreneurial movement was not connected to local needs. It was just something separate that was happening in those communities, and people were creating businesses that the goods that were made were
Hmm.
looking for outside markets to be sold versus creating businesses around local needs. And that was not happening. So we created Goodlearn Foundation.
So you're saying that basically you found this problem with the philanthropy disrupting the local economies, and you decided to solve this problem by connecting the donors with local entrepreneurs. You successfully did this with Nepal,
Mm-hmm.
but my assumption was that, like, when you were talking, is that there are not enough entrepreneurs locally, so you will not be able to scale in case of the need. But what you're saying is there are entrepreneurial movements, there are enough entrepreneurs, but they are not looking for local problems. They looking to sell on a global market. They don't try to solve problems of their local communities. Is it right?
Yeah, that's what it is. And we were looking at the local, not necessarily entrepreneurs to connect them to donors. We were looking at just at the existing businesses, and we found that there are not enough resources available to cover local needs. And then there is a movement, entrepreneurial movement in those areas because there are not enough jobs. So governments put a lot of energy into entrepreneurship, but unfortunately it's not entrepreneurship that is set to cover local needs. So for example, there will be companies will come into the area, they will teach everybody how to do plumbing, and these people from that village would have to, because there are not enough plumbing jobs in the area, they will move to the capital and create a whole slew of different problems because of that movement. And there will be women that will decide that they will be making jam when there is no market for jam in the area. So they will be looking at how they can make a good enough jam, which will take years to master, and so that they can sell it outside of the country.
I see.
And instead, their bread is needed in the area, and they could have started the bakery, but they did not look into covering local needs. They were looking more for how they can make money and start a business. We were thinking even, the companies that come to the area to teach technical skills. A lot of time, these technical skills, once they are taught, the employer of these people is outside of the country. So if, for example, Google decides that they no longer want to hire those coders that they just trained because of the political situation in the country, the whole village will have no jobs. So what, they have the skills, but they have no employer who will pay them for their skills. And so our goal is to not just to teach people how to fish, but teach them what to do with that fish.
Yes, that's a great analogy. So you're saying is that even if local governments create programs, provide funds, and try to give people freedom of entrepreneurship and like facilitate and force them to start their own businesses and companies, but eventually people don't know the basics of problem solving and the design thinking that we kind of here in Silicon Valley all familiar with. Like we already burned a lot of problems, and we understand that the finding the right problem and working on the right problem is more important than the solution. Is it what you're trying to now address, this kind of problem that people are not familiar with this kind of design thinking approach?
Actually, if talking about design thinking is just one a small part of a larger picture.
Uh-huh.
And what we are trying to do is to help people to analyze their own communities and see who is doing what and how these problems are being solved, and try to find a sustainable solution, which is a business, a for-profit type of solution. Actually, if they wanted to start another non-profit type of solution, that's fine as well, or advocacy group, that's perfectly fine. But we're taking it we take a broader view than just let's say human-centered design or design thinking, because it does not take into consideration many other factors. Like, okay, if you want to help this particular group of people and you focus with your solution on that particular group of people, the design thinking does not allow you to think about the changes that are happening because of your action. And there is no focus on that. You're just focusing on helping solely that sole group.
So you're talking about systematic approach,
Yes,
right?
yeah, the
I see.
systems changes. We're talking about multiple stakeholders that have to be taken into consideration. We're looking at the changing environment while you're creating your own solution. And while it's all good to cover the needs of specific customers and beneficiaries, it's as important to pay attention to what's happening around you while you're doing so, and see that people are not harmed by your solution. Other people are not harmed. Industries or whole country is not harmed by what you're trying to bring. And we think of any social issue cannot be solved by competing. It can only be solved by collaborating with others. So it's a little bit different approach than your regular Silicon Valley
I see.
methodologies teach. Yeah.
Right. So can you give me examples? I know that you guys recently made a few trips to different countries. There was a Zambia and Jordan. Why did you choose those countries? And can you tell me more about your projects there? How everything is related?
Yeah, so Tatiana went to Zambia because she has friends there, and she had an opportunity to visit the country and meet with large number of people there who are trying to get the country out of poverty. And they do understand that they are on this NGO needle right now, dependent goods and services that come from outside of the country, and they desperately want to get off that needle and to be self-sustainable. And Tatiana spent a lot of time there trying to, together with people of Zambia, try to figure out the way how that can happen. And we have an agreement right now, have created a partnership with Zambian Open Community Schools that we're working with right now, that where we are not just covering their needs, immediate needs that they have, but also teaching people within the communities where those schools located to create businesses around those needs, that is not just one-time solution, but actually local the whole community can grow in their abilities to solve their own problems. So that's a project in Zambia.
Hmm.
And then our project in Jordan, it's a little bit different, but it's still connected. As I was mentioning about the entrepreneurial movement, and that was different from the movement that would cover the needs of local communities. Our goal is to train young people in on a college level to look into the opportunities to use their knowledge that they're getting while in college, not to necessarily just to get a job and create for themselves economic prosperity, but take that knowledge and turn it into helping the communities to thrive while they're helping themselves and creating the opportunities for themselves. And so our project in Jordan is in partnership with Harvard University that cares about the mental health of Syrian refugees who are right now studying in Jordan. And our goal is to embed entrepreneurship and innovation training into the existing courses. So by the time the students graduate, they they will be able to create businesses that will cover the needs of their communities. So this is more of how do you teach entrepreneurship now without really calling it an entrepreneurship, because that's a scary name for countries and fragile states. Not many want to go into entrepreneurship because there is a stigma in those countries that these jobs are not stable, that
Right.
you will
Yes.
fail, and everybody doesn't have economic prosperity. That's what they want. They want a stable job that they can live a life that is economically prosperous.
Right. As the countries are unstable, they want to minimize the risk,
Exactly.
and they just everyone from older people, parents, everyone tells their kids that you need to find a stable job, preferably
Sure.
preferably with the government, and
Yes.
entrepreneurship is a crazy thing. So, like, is it why you started the youth summit and you try to teach kids to how to take risks, how to be entrepreneurs, and how to approach systematically those problems and help their local communities and local countries?
Yeah, the summit was is a means for us to tell the world about the work we do and what we believe in, and have a large audience of young people from United States. Right now, it's an U.S. summit, but in the future, we hope that it will become an international summit. And what we've learned, and it's a very interesting thing actually to pay attention to. The kids go to kindergarten, and the parents, take very big care in what kindergarten the kids are going to go to, especially here in Silicon Valley. It's like, what school you're going to go to? Is it private
Yeah.
school, public school, where you live? You have to move to the neighborhood where schools are good. And it seems like the sole purpose of that is to eventually get into a good high school. And the purpose of getting in a good high school is to get into a good college. And the purpose of getting into a good college is so that you can get a good job, which will create a prosperity in your life, and you'll be able to live comfortably, so that you in the future can create a a stable retirement for yourself. So if
Right.
you think like that, it seems like we go to a kindergarten to secure for ourselves a stable retirement. And in the process, we miss all these years where we can explore, where we can reflect, where we can see how we fit in this world. The kids in at least in Silicon Valley, and those kids that we work with are high energy, high driven, achieving type of kids. They don't have time to reflect. And in fact, many of them, in starting in a kindergarten, if it's a high profile school, they see each other as a competition. When they get in
Yes.
a high school, they say that all these kids around me will be applying to the same colleges, and they see each other as a competition. It's quite interesting, and we're trying to change their mentality and helping kids to reflect more on where they stand in this world and what they try to accomplish and where they can fit the best and what their strengths are. We also added compassionate training to our programs. We believe that compassion for yourself, being able to receive compassion,
Hmm.
will teach those kids to be able to give, be compassionate, and be able to give to the world.
Yeah, I think this problem that you describes is actually like crazy one. I have a friend, and I think he was telling me that like you even getting his kid to preschool is quite competitive. He needs to like be able to count to 50 and know what's the hexagon is, and just crazy things. And so how do you actually teach kids to have the compassion, to have like a classes? How does it work? Because summit, as I understand, is just an event that you bring people. It's a 2 days event, like a conference essentially. But how do you train the kids and teach them? Is there some kind of a longer program that you have or you plan to do?
Yeah, we ran a social innovation youth incubator, and this is the program. We have a program 3 months, we have 6 months. And those kids that stay with us for both 6 months and 3 months, we provide them with assistance in between. So that becomes like 10 months or a year program. And we partnered with, we do everything in collaboration with other people. So for compassionate training, we partnered with Bright City, and Professor Daniel Martin. He teaches at Calais Bay and Stanford. And it's a peer to peer mentoring program where youth online able to get through lessons. There's nobody who is teaching them. They teach each other and they go through different lessons. And we believe that it's a highly effective because they get to talk to each other, learn about each other, and also learn about themselves in the process, because there are a lot of questions that they would have to answer there that requires them to reflect on their own emotions and their own lives. And
Such an
yeah, so that's where we work with our youth. We also provide them with strengths-based leadership development training, so they get to reflect a lot.
yes. Yeah, I almost envy. I wish when I was a kid I had such a program. But as I understand, this is something that you doing right now in Silicon Valley, but you plan to kind of expand it to other places as well. If somebody is listening to this podcast and they want to partner with you and do something like this in their country, what would be the best way to contact you or reach you? Is it something that you're ready to expand to other countries and places, or is it still in the progress?
Yeah, our goal is to partner with highly motivated entities, and
Right.
that's where our projects usually go. Is if we find a partner that is highly motivated and willing to work We are not trying to sell our programs to anybody. We believe in what we do and in our mission. And if you are the partner who has the same mission and you would like to partner with us, so we can definitely discuss it. Our program at Harvard University, with Harvard University at Zarqa University in Jordan, is one of the examples of that program. The Zarqa University is highly um, uh, motivated to be able to graduate job creators. And not only that, they are highly motivated to to graduate job creators who are able to tackle the needs of their communities. And we, in partnership with them, that's what we are trying to achieve, is to make sure that people who graduate from college, they're not suffering by not being able to find jobs and getting into depression and creating more issues for the local governments, but their mental state is such that they believe in themselves, they take on challenges, and they're able to move this world in a better place. The same thing, our goal is for Zambia. That's the Zambia Open Community Schools, our great partner. They're very interested in working with us, and these are the type of partnerships we're looking for. In the U.S., we are partnering with high schools and colleges and offering practitioners view on entrepreneurships. Like we are partnering and co-creating a class, a social innovation class at Menlo College in Atherton. We
Uh-huh.
also taught one of the sessions at the Design Technology School in the Bay Area. So we are, interested in working with others. Yeah.
You're quite active. I think that amount of stuff that you guys are doing is just amazing. I'm so happy that I had you on the show today. And I think with this note, I just wanted to wrap up with the quick firearm questions. If you don't mind, I just
Mm-hmm.
ask you a short question and you have 30 seconds or less
Okay.
to answer. I mean, if you take more time, it's fine. um, so let me start. What is your favorite book, or what would you recommend me to read next?
The book, I actually read nonfiction. At least that's what has been on my mind right now. I read a lot of nonfiction books, and I try to read the books that are not in a field that I know, or the field that will where I'm at right now. So one of those books that I read, and I think that that is one of the best books I've ever read, actually, and it's called "The Gene: An Intimate Story." And this is about the genome, and it has a lot of history in it. I would highly recommend to anyone. It's a great book.
Yes, I think I heard about it. It was on my list to read. I will try to read it next. I know this is next question can be you might have a really long answer, but like, do you think like philanthropy? Do you truly believe that philanthropy can be combined with an entrepreneurship?
Or absolutely, it's happening right now, where a lot of companies are starting already thinking on what the benefits to the community will be from the very very beginning. They're designed already with the premise of changing the world for better. And I think it will smart philanthropy is where you're not just pouring money on a problem, but actually you stop and think on how that can happen on a more, you educate yourself about the problem and you are doing it more systemic way. I think it's already happening. And it will continue to grow, this movement.
And my last question: what would you recommend for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur and they in like a small village, let's say in Russia, they just have access to internet, they everyone tells them to be go work for government or like a local bank, but they want to change something in their life and in their world, what would you like some simple thing that you would recommend them to do to start with?
I would recommend is to try to connect with local people whom they can learn from, because it to me is being part of the community. Like-minded people is extremely important, and I'm sure you can find like-minded people anywhere, no matter where you're at, because then together you'll be able to. That's how you'll be able to create a team, and that's how you'll be able to innovate together and learn. But another thing is to just to be able to have that, allow yourself for time to reflect and learn about the local needs and local the ways that those needs are being covered right now, and trying to find better ways. I think the reflection and it's underestimated, and just to take time to think. A lot of people don't take that time, and that's why we have this like pancake solutions that everybody's copying each other.
Yes, that's such a great answer, and I think that's time for us to finish. Thank you for your time, Galina. It was such a pleasure to talk to you on the show today. I think many young people will be inspired if they listen to this. At least I'm inspired already. And I hope that your youth summit and will be able to, expand,
Yeah.
because I really wish that at least in my home country and in the places where I'm from, something like this exists. And I think it will change a lot of lives.
Yeah, and we announced the day for the summit. It's going to be October 19th and 20th at Stanford
Mhm.
University. It is in co-hosted by the United Nations UNFPA in support of Compact for Young People in Humanitarian Action, with the group which Goodlearn is a part of at the United Nations. And we also, our summer incubator, registration for the summer incubator is open, and you can find information on goodlearn.org. Goodlearn is spelled with two D's, so it's GOODDLER.org, and you can get all the information there.
Yes, for everyone who is listening, we will have those links on the description. So please go check it out. And thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Community Pilot podcast. To read more about Social Innovation Youth Incubator, please see the links in the description to the podcast. Check out our previous episodes and subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. Stay tuned.